There we go. Hey, what's going on, Saber Legion? Thank you for joining in for another episode of Repost and Riposte. I'm just going to have that up there. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to tune in. Sorry, we got other stuff. There we go. All right, so I'm coming to you on a weekend day because my week was very busy with work. So I decided I had some time. I would get in my kind of TSL5 recap and talk more about post tournament analysis using my own experiences, but specifically how you are able to utilize that and look at your own back at your own performance, whether that's no matter what your goal was. It's just a way to create a healthy way of looking back without either a beating yourself up or maybe thinking too highly of yourself without giving you steps to improve in the future. So this is to apply to the next steps of your training. Um, so, uh, so let me just check here, double check the comments. Cool. And feel free if you have questions, comments, anything like that. I will try to access them as quickly as possible. Um, so I will go right into it. So for those of you that are not aware, I think anyone in the TSL world would know, but July 22nd through the 25th was Combat Con in Las Vegas, where TSL had their fifth international tournament that we have held annually, with the exception of last year. And everything went very well. I myself was, hang on one sec, just putting my noise canceling in so other sounds don't distract me. I myself came in. I was helping with the planning for it, doing a lot of the media element for it. I do want to give a shout out to everybody that helped with planning and for all of the tournament and media. That's Charlie, Melody, Clint, Jen, Darby. And then on the media side of things, I mean, there's other people I'm going to miss here, but on the media side of things, Jason Knight, Joe Pavlenko, Greg Stevens, Eric Halston, trying to think of other people who like helped out all weekend, all the photographers. There's a whole bunch of people there that just put in time, their own equipment, their own expertise. And I think we had a very successful tournament. I think we had a very successful live stream. Are there things that I was unhappy about because of technological limitations? I'm talking from a stream perspective. Yes. Every event can always be better, but I think that there were a lot of things we did really right, and a lot of planning that we did to um, prevent those really panicky moments that sometimes occur when you're running an event or running a live stream or something like that. So just wanted to get that out of the way. But um, so that part went really well. I spent most of the weekend either I was either behind the stream, kind of help run that. Did some commentary. I didn't do that much, but and I do want to thank the people that did step up on commentary. I think also Alec Martinez stepped up as well. There might be one other person I'm missing, but I think I got Ryan, Eric, and Alec, and then Joe Pavlenko was on there. So I was fighting, directing, and helping run the stream. So those kind of the three things I was doing. I'm also making sure that wherever I needed to help out, I could help out. So that all went pretty well. I mean, I was pretty much working from open of the room to the close of the room every single day. But again, some of that was time where I was fighting, so I did still get that in, but I didn't necessarily get the time I would normally like at Combat Con. I've been attending Combat Con since 2016, so 2 years before TSL started going to Combat Con for the tournament. And I do miss sometimes being able to go to the classes. I haven't fought any HEMA tournaments since 2018 because of volunteer commitments to TSL. So those are things I miss, but I also am happy that I'm able to contribute to the organization and help the organization out. So That aside, let's go into kind of the main topic of post-tournament analysis, TSL5 recap. So we had 4 tournaments running. We had a 50 plus, we had the exotics, we had the women's tournament, and we had the standard saber tournament. They all went fairly well operationally. So I fought in 2 of them. I fought in the exotics and the standard saber. So I'll just kind of break down some ways that I see how you can look at your performance, because for some people this was their first TSL tournament. For some people this is their second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever. But but there's ways you can approach and look back at what you did, which can help you reflect and apply what you've learned or what you need to work on to your training. So what you did there, whether good or bad, doesn't negatively impact your training. One thing that can happen, I've seen it happen with some people, is you can do really well for your standards. And again, this is not a do really well like you won or you placed or something like that. It could be that, but I'm looking at it like you did really well by your standards. Maybe your standard was I want to get out of the pools or something like that. So you should need to look back at that and say, okay, what did I do that was successful? Um, and when I went into the tournament, what was I focused on? What was the thing that I was going to work on? There was some things with footwork. I was going to work on some things with distance that I was going to work on. And I will admit that some of those specific goals that I had, I was not as successful accomplishing them. I struggled a little bit more, most likely because that was the first competition atmosphere that I had been in since February of 2020, right? So I haven't really been in a position where I'm not in a free sparring or something like that, where I'm actually under the wire. There's a clock running. I need to score a certain amount of points. That's a big thing that I had to overcome. So that probably impacted how successful I was in incorporating my goals with how I wanted to utilize my footwork. Now, so one thing I wanted to do with footwork was I didn't want to be so heavy with my feet. And there were situations where I definitely followed that goal and I achieved it. But there were other times where I didn't fight as well. So I'm going to break down a couple things that I did, and I'm just going to break down my kind of where I was. So my exotics pools, pretty straightforward. I think two had pikes. Well, 3 of us had pikes, and Jameis was running, I think, staff. Jameis from Colorado. So that went pretty straightforward. I won all those matches. I didn't feel any particular way about it as far as like, yeah, I liked that they were all different types of matches, meaning I didn't have to fight the same way each time. I could approach it differently. I fought Ryan McKenna, Tony Tripp, and Jameis Brumbaugh. Ryan was a very technical fight. Tony was a very physical fight. And Jameis, I always like fighting someone who's fighting without a pike. Even though everybody fights with a pike, and I do as well. And that was enjoyable because I don't even know the last time I fought a staff. I think the last time I fought a staff was TSL2. I think I fought one in the opening round, which I wouldn't really say that was anytime soon since that was 4 years ago. Hey Alicia, how are we doing? If you got questions, I know Alicia was there, so um, if you got questions, let me know about like things you focused on or things you're looking to reflect on or something like that. I can answer. So yeah, my exotics went pretty well. Again, how I fight with a pike is how I fight differently than standard. Obviously because it's a different weapon, but footwork wise, as far as heavy footwork, I wasn't necessarily doing that. Went into standard saber because I fought on Thursday for exotics. Went into standard saber pools on Friday evening, and I did not perform the way I wanted to perform in those pools. Um, I won every match, but it was very much I was just not fighting my I wasn't fighting my fight. And that doesn't even necessarily mean like, oh, I should have done better, or I should have won by more points or something like that, or they were no good. No, nothing to do with that. It has to do with me. Something that this is just how I operate, and I know other people do in TSL, is when you're looking at what you're doing in a match, I'd like to feel good about it. I like to feel that I'm fighting to the best of my ability. If I fight to the best of my ability and lose, I'm okay with it. That's okay. I've done what I can do. Everything else is I'm almost outside of my control at that moment. Are there things I could have changed or done differently? Of course, but everything I could have done was what I needed to do. That did not happen in my pools at all. So okay, sorry, Alicia said. Already given myself the what for. Just need to prioritize my list. Cool. Hopefully something I can say is useful in regards to this. Um, so my standard pool. So I fought Chris Nguyen from Minnesota. Uh, uh, was it Ray? And I can't remember his last name, from Tennessee. And there was Layla from Nevada. So my fight with Chris. I mean, I will say Chris has definitely had a lot of experience since I fought him at TSL4. He has definitely improved, but the thing that happened in that match, I felt that I was just, straightforward, get the point, get the point, get the point, get the point. I wasn't fighting my fight. I wasn't. Rodriguez, thank you, Bobby. I just it completely blanked from my mind. So um, I just it completely blanked from my mind like what I was supposed to be doing. It's kind of the plan of like the Tyson thing. They say it's like Tyson said it. I don't know the exact quote who to attribute the quote to, because I've heard it from other places. But everybody's got a plan and then they get punched in the face. I went in with a plan, not necessarily of like, oh, I'm going to do exactly this thing, but like I'm going to control my tempo and I'm going to move in this way. I didn't do that. It was pretty much like straightforward, 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 straightforward. And I went down points. I think I went down three. I don't know if I went down 4 points, but I think I went down like 3 points in that match, and had to claw my way back. That it was. It's not the first time I've had to do it, but it was something I wasn't used to. It was something I was unsure about. I was unsure of myself in the beginning of that match, and I had to pretty much pull out kind of old tricks that I don't necessarily like to do. And I don't mean trick. I say tricks, but really, in reality, they're old things. The old standbys that I'd prefer to do other things. I prefer to do other techniques and fight in a different way, but I didn't have a choice, right? I needed to get these points, and I was, probably in my brain, I was panicking, and I was just I was out of my game. I was totally in my head. I didn't know, Mark was in my corner, and he was trying to say what he could to get me back into it. But just at a certain point, I was already out. I just wasn't thinking about it. So I got through that fight. That went okay. Second fight went okay, but it was just yeah, Bobby, the kick them in the shin method. I mean, I think one of the things I don't do it that often anymore is I do a kind of like a running thrust, and not really running, but like bigger steps into a thrust, and kind of hit the arm sometimes with a cut. I think I did that a couple times. I think at times I was operating on I needed to hit a deeper target when I didn't need to do that. I wasn't being very clean. I wasn't making my shots clean enough for the judges to see. That was something I wasn't used to. It's like a year and a half since the last time I had judges actually judge a match of mine. So so I was looking for that, and that was difficult. That was difficult to adapt to. I know how to do it. I have experience with it, but I struggled. I will admit that I struggled with it because In the moment, I couldn't necessarily just find the groove that I needed to find. That pretty much stayed through the second match. I did okay in that match against Layla, but it was just I was still in my head. I wasn't fighting my fight. Um, and then my last fight, my last fight against Ray, Ray did a great job. His height and reach. I know he's a little bit taller than me. I think he had a little bit more reach. Um, gave me some trouble, and I was moving in a straight line. I was not moving at an angle. All of the things that I say to do, you go back to my shows, say bad habits and don't do these things. Yeah, I wasn't doing those. I was fighting in a straight line. I was just not fighting the way I wanted to fight. To the point where I think I was down 1 point, 1 point, 2 points. I think I was down 2 points. I'm pretty sure. Or no, it was definitely 1 point because now I remember. Okay, I was down 1 point. I was really feeling it. I was just kind of, going through panic in my head, and I kind of just lunged in at 1 point. Ray sticks the blade out, hits me right in the neck. I go down for a little bit. I'm okay. It's not no bruise or anything like that. So I was okay. But that's scary. That's a scary moment for him. That's a scary moment for me. That's a scary moment for everybody around there. Um, and it was just not it was not a good experience. I could continue with the match. I was okay after about a minute or so, and then fought back. I literally the next one I won, and then we went to sudden death. Literally with sudden death, I did something I never do. I saw that he was going to sweep my leg, uh, you know, and I literally jump lunged at him. I don't jump ever. Like I will move fast forward, but I don't jump ever. If you go back and watch it, it's on the stream. I literally jump. I jump once to try to hit him. I miss completely, by the way. Like on that first jump, my one foot hits the ground as his blade comes in, and I had to adjust because I didn't want to step on his blade. Not even necessarily to take the hit. It was more that I didn't want to step on his blade, trip and fall, or something like that. I step again, and literally just in the context of me falling forward into him, the forte of my blade, right above the emitter, just hits his shoulder. And I won the match off that. But I never do that. I never do that. If I'm pulling weird jumps like that, something's up. Um, but then the other thing that yeah, here, let me just see. Let's just go to the comments. So Seth said, "You and me both. I had way too much on my mind for standard pools first thing in the morning. Happens to the best of us." I can tell you, Seth, timing plays a big thing into it, and it doesn't necessarily mean all the same time. There's times I fought in the first pool. There's time, and this is different tournaments. I fought in the second pool, or in the middle somewhere. Sometimes, a lot of times, I fought at the end. I've had that a lot, end of the night kind of stuff. I mean, TSL3. It's not the TSL tournament, but the HEMA tournament, my rapier pool was the very last pool. They were running dramatically behind. They were running behind by like 2.5 hours. So like I didn't get to fight until like 9:30 at night. It was super late. I was done. I really didn't want to be there anymore. And that was hard. And it was hard. Those matches I didn't do that well in. As Bobby said, Ray, if you're not careful, pulls off random counters as well. You don't expect. Yeah, I didn't expect the one to the neck. Not blaming him. I'm just saying like, I didn't expect it. But yeah, there were some good counters he brought into it, and I just felt bad about how I was fighting. One, because I like to give people a good fight. I like to give something that they feel engaged with, and I felt like I was fighting just like a standard kind of like TSL fight that's just like back and forth, not necessarily a trade of skill, but just more of a trade of blows kind of thing. So I think that was many people in my fights are 100% what happens when you don't pack the fencing brain. I had a hard time focusing on the fights. I really only had a hard time focusing in that pool. I don't know what it was, if it was the timing or something like that, but it was really just that pool for me. I felt fairly good about everything else I did. I just felt like I didn't feel that way in my exotics pools because if the standard was my first fight back, and I was like, okay, I'm good. Hang on, I'm just gonna get some water here. Like if I'd say, okay, I'm good to go. Um, and I struggle in that first one back. Okay, I get it, but I did have the exotic fights. They went well. It was just one of those things. Um, so yeah, personally, I fight better tired than fresh. We all have our quirks. She had a lot to manage that day. I mean, I kind of like the management part because I've had it too many times where I sit around and do nothing as the fighter. And I'm going to get back to that in regards to volunteerism and giving back to the community. I just want to give my little piece on it because I know Mark talked about it, and there were some complaints about that, about like the mandatory volunteers, stuff like that. So I do want to bring that up. So I will come back to that in relation to how it affects you as a fighter because I've experienced it. So I haven't found a exact quirk for me. It's mainly like I need to keep engaged, but there's a certain time where I need to focus on the fight. And I haven't figured out that balance yet. There's like a certain amount of time I need to prepare. I didn't have enough time to prepare. That was the other thing I did forget to mention. I went into those standard fights absolutely cold. I did not warm up whatsoever, other than a couple little footwork drills. I didn't do anything. I didn't even clack a blade. Doing that probably was a bad idea. Probably didn't help. It just didn't help my mind ease into it. But there's a definite balance there that I needed to find. So um, pools tend to be more fun than single eliminations, but chances to spar here are slim. Yeah. Yeah, the shot to my throat was scary. I mean, I will say I was 100% fine. Well, can't say 100%. I was fine. I purposely, when I take a shot like that to the throat, it's only happened a couple times really, but in recent years, I took one to like the side of the neck, not the throat, um, and like it made my arm like go numb for like a second because I tensed up. That happened at the Saber Masters tournament. I go down to the ground, I take a knee, and I'm like, okay, am I okay? Is something wrong? Um, you know, is what can I do? Like, is this very serious? Do I need to say something or something like that? So I did have like a minor sore throat for like a day, maybe day and a half, but it wasn't anything major. Like when I got hit in a pike, TSL2 in the throat, like a straight pike shot, my throat was sore for a week. So that was nowhere near as bad as as the shot I took it. So so what I'll say about that getting hit in the throat, something to just keep in mind if one thing we started making with a lot of the directors, we said if someone takes a throat shot, regardless, let's take 15 to 30 seconds and just take a break because you don't know how it feels until a little bit after when your body actually reacts to it. Um, I will also say that after a minute or two and recovering and continuing the fight, after that fight ended, all the adrenaline just kicked in. Like my whole body just kind of went, tingling all over the place right after the fight. Literally, like within 15 to 20 seconds after the fight ended, all that adrenaline just went through the rest of my body. So I was still in some form of like shock or something at that point. You know, just that's something to know. So I liked line judging while waiting to fight because it kept my mind off being nervous and kept my legs loose from moving to the sidelines. So I'm gonna second that. And Andy, you did a great job line judging. I will wholeheartedly say you did a great job. Yeah, I was okay. I was okay getting up though, but I'll say about line judging, that's something that I have done in the past as a fighter. I line judge as much as I can. I like keeping my brain distracted, so I'm not focusing on the fight, but I'm thinking about fighting in a different way. So it's engaging a different part of my brain where I can think about it and I can go from like, okay, I'm thinking about, okay, did it hit here? Did it hit here? I also that helped me train my eye, and I didn't really have to worry about. Um, it made it a lot easier for me to judge in the future. At TSL 3 and Combat Con that year, was I did probably, because of my last pool being rapier, last rapier pool, and it was very late, from like I think like 6 to like 9 o'clock, and 9:30 was like when I was going to end up fighting. I ended up judging, doing rapier judging, which is very difficult, rapier dagger judging, and it got me really good at seeing small objects, multiple objects, and seeing hits, to the point where I've said it to other people, like it made TSL, run slow. Not that it is slow. I'm just saying, like, compared to a rapier, that's a very small, small metal blade, and there's four things moving back and forth. It made it, and you have to look for specific things when you're judging HEMA. So it's something that I have gotten very good at, and I like that part of when I like doing that when I am waiting for a pool or I have to wait around. It does help me a lot, because there's been times where I've tried the I'm going to sit and wait kind of thing, and I drove myself insane mentally. And by the time I actually got to the fight, I was so mentally tired from thinking about the fight that I just couldn't continue. That happened like in a few years back at one of my CS matches. So, um, so yeah, so my pools, that didn't go well. I would also say my attitude was very bad because I was fighting so badly, on my standards. Um, I think that I, just was kind of grumbling, complaining, just not in a good, not a good attitude, not the attitude you expect of any TSL fighter, but also, someone who's in a leadership position. So it was just, very unbecoming of me. So I fully admit that, and uh, I strove to be better, moving forward with any of the fights that I was going to be in, because I got through my pools and exotics and standard. So that kind of led me to, I just needed to find the right balance, figure out what I was going to do, to get myself focused. And I think I did. I came into the eliminations for standard. I did end up losing in the first round to Dale Snyderhand, but Dale ended up coming in fourth. Had a great match. That's the key thing. I don't mind losing a match because I had a great match. We were both had a very technical match. I enjoyed it. I was okay with it. Yes, there are other calls that I'm like, oh, that call should have gone to me. Of course, I always think that, but we all think that as fighters, and it's not reality. It's what the judges see. Until we have, some form of exact detection of who hit first, we're going to run into this problem. So, but I'm okay with losing. That match, it freed up a lot of time for me to end up being able to direct a lot more in the eliminations for standard down the line, and I also got to direct the finals. So I was really happy I got to do that. And I would hope, I hope the fighters appreciated me directing. Um, I know I'm a little different energy than some of the other directors, and that's not a one is better than the other. I just meant different energy, in reality. Um, so I'm glad I got to do that. Exotics, I got through I got all the way to the semis, and then I lost to Alan, who actually was using a pike for the first time. Worked out. I was okay with that. I felt I could have fought better, but the big thing I looked at was, um, in all my fights, the big common thread that I saw, and this is what I'm going to apply to my training, is that, um, I need to figure out how to adapt to the scenario of being up on points and still fighting without going into if I'm going to use a football term, a prevent defense, because a prevent defense typically loses. But even though, because we want to protect our lead and then we lose our lead, there were multiple times in which I lost the lead, whether I won or lost the match, where I was up points and all I had to do was continue with what I was doing, but I changed strategies to prevent points and ended up losing more points. So that's something I'm going to have to work on. Also, I'm going to have to work on, my one of my big goals actually was, from a physical perspective. I didn't want to be tired. I never wanted to gas myself because I gassed myself in TSL 4 and exotics. So I felt at no point was I ever at max, physical exertion. I could have fought for many more matches without being tired. So that was a good thing. I figured out the right balance of, nutrition, electrolytes, what I was doing. My heart rate, I was kind of start tracking that and looking at things like that. I didn't do it to the level I wanted to do it to, but I was able to find where I was, what my exertion was, and control that and help myself not be tired at the end of the day, whether it was at the end of a match when the matches really mattered at the end. When you only have, a semifinal or a final. But on top of that, that I'm not looking at, um, you know, so just that I didn't have any physical things holding me back. It was all mental and skill associated. So that's what I need to look at going forward. That mental ability of, I'm up 2 points. What do I do next without changing strategy but keeping effective? So maybe trying to get that extra point. Do I go too aggressive? There's a whole balance to that. That's where the chess match comes in. But those are things that I'm going to focus on and work on. So how you apply that is, because like maybe you didn't have as many matches as me. Maybe you didn't, I should note that with exotics, I came in third place. I fought against Tony Zaldua in the third place match. Ended up winning that match. It was a great match, and yeah, and I am happy to say that even though I had high expectations going into TSL5 that were higher winning tournaments, I have placed in every single TSL tournament year, meaning year, that I've been going to TSL. So since TSL2, I've placed every year. TSL2, I got second in exotics. TSL3, third in standard. TSL4, second in standard and tag team. And TSL5, third place in exotics. So I have done that, and that is, I think, a very good way of at least maintaining my level, which I think is important because I think at too many times do we look at what's the next step, and of course I always look at the next step, and we all should. We should have a goal to strive for. But when you don't achieve that goal, that you can maintain the level you were at, I think is also very important. So you don't backslide, right? And I know like placing is kind of arbitrary, and there can be a lot of changes. I mean, you give me a different opponent, in exotics, or you give me a different opponent in standard, maybe the results are flipped, right? You never know. So, um, look at what you plan to do. Sorry, let me approach that differently. Sorry, just getting for some reason getting a message on there. Uh, spam. Um, look at what you need to do uh, to look at how did you do? What was your goal going in? So if your goal was, I want to get out of my pools, let's look at it from that perspective. And you did not get out of your pools. Well, what are the scenarios that happened? Well, okay, so one could be, okay, I was in a pool with Mark Carrico, right? And this is my second tournament or something like that. And you say, okay, well, I lost to Mark, and I didn't. Oh, and I lost to another person. I'm just making up things. I lost to Carlos. I know they weren't in the same pool, but um, so look at those fights. Look at what you did right. Look what you did wrong. Um, my very first HEMA tournament, I did a single stick tournament at Combat Con in 2016. Lost every fight. I lost two of the fights. I didn't score a point. It was with weighted points. It was 9-0 by the end of it. But my first fight in had some very wonderful exchanges. Made someone work really hard to get those 9 points. Um, the other person, they kind of just destroyed me, but that's okay. And then the next fight, I lost like 7-5. Right, it was like a fairly close one. There was a point that wasn't called in my favor. That judges called, but then the director called it back, even though multiple judges, not a big deal, but it was close enough, and I felt really good about that fight, even though I lost. So, and then I took that and I took it to the next tournament, and the next tournament I was able to win more matches. Did not get out of pools, but that's kind of how it goes sometimes. And then I think, what was that, 20? What was the first year I got out of pools? Well, actually, I think I did not get out of pools until 2019, when I was at SoCal Sword Fight. And I actually won my first eliminations match against someone who was a very, very skilled opponent. I actually beat him like 1-0. We were very even, but that's something that you can work on. I will say, my first tournament, it took me from 2016 until 2019 to actually get out of pools in a HEMA tournament. And I still have only done that with single stick. I have not. Rapier is my primary weapon, and I still have not gotten out of a pool scenario in a rapier tournament, right? Some of those are like scenarios of who I was paired up with. I mean, I was in certain cases I was paired up with some of the top ranked fighters in the world. So I could win one, and then the other two were just the one. I know the one guy. He's not like top ranked, but he was like he's 6'6" and a very long reach, and he could just reach his arm out and just hit me in the head. And then the other one was Miles Cup, who's one of the top ranked fighters in the world. So that's just something to think about. Is that like there's always something you can go up at, work up to, and placing is not necessarily the way to go. You should look at your film of what you did. We will be trying to release most of our fights as we go along. Look at your fights. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What did you think you can do better? Yes, someone like me, I can look at a fight of yours and say, "Hey, you could try this. You could try this. You could try this." But I guarantee there are things that you see you doing that you can fix. I've watched only a little bit of my TSL5 fights, but I know there are certain things I need to work on. Just certain things with how I move, or certain tendencies or bad habits or tells that I do that make it harder, make my job to win a match a lot harder than it needs to be. So that is that is definitely something to keep in mind. Look for where you can where you can improve from watching yourself. And I don't mean it's a big thing. Usually it's a very small thing. It's like I'm doing something weird here with my footwork. I'm doing something weird here with when I go to cut. Um, I'm just making things up. I'm just pulling things out. But those are things to look for. For me, again, I was moving on the line. Um, yeah, as Greg says, every single thing in your what not to do videos, pretty much everything that I say to not to do, you look at those things, you probably do at least three or four of them. And as I say, I did multiple things like that. So don't feel bad that you did them. Think about how you can work to improve that, to get better, to work past it, and train it out of you. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to spar more, because if you don't have a sparring partner, right? Some people don't necessarily have the charter sizes, or they're far away from their charter. So you need to look at what can you do to what can you do in the meantime to work on some of those things. Are there drills you can do? Are there things you can study? That's the key thing. We talked about with beginning of Quarantine TV, we said, we're constantly focused on this stuff. You look at, we're constantly working at the very least on a mental level, even if not a physical level. And you look at, who placed, right? Mark came in first in standard. Alec came in second. I came in third in the exotic. You look at that, and it's the people that were putting the work in. Not even necessarily if they were able to fight people, but it's the people that were able to put the work in. They were able to achieve something. Uh, I know Seth was constantly working, because Seth did a lot of stuff for Underground and with Wisconsin. So you look at that, he won exotics. That's a whole thing. So it's just look at that of what work can you put in addition to it. I don't have time to I don't have time to schedule out 2 hours of training, right? In reality, our sport isn't big enough. There's not like necessarily enough payout to us to practice that much, right? But there's time that you should be putting regular time in, right? I'm putting in regular time every week, but I have two young kids. I have a family. I have a job. All these things, I can't necessarily focus all my time on it, right? So just find the time that you can do it. That's a good thing. So Let's see. Having someone in your corner helps as well, especially when the whole Florida charter is in the other corner. Yeah, I mean, and I'll say, if you watch, when I got knocked out of standard, I was in corners from other than when I wasn't directing, I was in corners. I was in Mark's corner. I was in Alan's corner. I was definitely cornering, and I know that that is definitely an advantage for someone. Um, what I'll say though is the Florida cornering is different. Florida cornering is support, right? Rather than um, Florida cornering is support rather than like strategy. There are times they might say a couple strategy things, but they're not cornering in the same way. They are. At least this is what I've been told, and if I have it wrong, they can correct me. But they are doing it for moral support. And if you watch, you can really see they're doing it for moral support. Occasionally, there are things said, but they're not doing it to be like a corner man to be a second to say, "Hey, move off the line and attack on your left" or something like that. So um, nerves and heart rate both need to be way lower. Yeah, that's why even though I only got to do it for like a couple matches because I kept forgetting, I put my watch into an exercise mode, so it's measuring my heart rate, so I can just glance at it and say, "Up, okay, my heart rate's at here," and I know what my heart rate levels are. So it's like, oh, I'm in 150. 150 is not too bad because I know my max heart rate is somewhere around 180, right? Because I've done high intensity intervals and interval training on a bike. And I know that, okay, that's my max heart rate because I know what that felt like. So that can help as well. If you're going into a match and you have it on here and you look at it and you say, wow, my heart rate is already high and I haven't even exerted myself yet. That's a good thing to look at. Those are things that you can do to help control. You can use simple things you can do to help control how you react to it, right? Pee 2 minutes before check-in, not 20. Um, well, I mean, that really depends. I'm going to say something weird, but a lot of times, uh, not it's not an emergency, but a lot of times I like the fact that my body's telling me because of the nerves that I need to go to the bathroom. I like that feeling because it's like certain like I need to get in and get out and win here, kind of attitude. Sounds weird, but that's what works for me sometimes. Not in every fight, but just like, and a lot of times I'll go to the bathroom before fights, and then I'll still have the feeling as though I had to go. Probably don't have to go. It's probably just still nerves kicking in, right? But I have to. It takes sometimes that feeling just it helps me just that I need to go, that I need to keep moving, that I need to keep working. So in education, the highest percentage of growth comes from self-review assessments. Our tournament fights are results, not the placements. So I agree that reviewing every move and variable is the best way to grow. Yeah, yeah, it doesn't matter how you did, on a objective level. It's the subjective of what you're looking at, what you analyze, that's going to have the most results. Especially when you don't necessarily, if you went into your pools and you lost every match, right? That's looking at that objectively can mentally destroy you, right? Um, I went into TSL5 saying I want to win both of these tournaments, right? I didn't do it, but that's okay. It's but I also in a feed before one of my streams before TSL5 said if I don't win, that's okay because I have these other things that I'm working on. That's why also goal setting is so important because sorry, my noise canceling kicked off. There we go. Okay, sorry. Um, but um, but yeah, my you got to look at like what goals, even if you didn't have goals, say you're just looking at what you did, you can go in there and you can look at certain things that you've been working on. What did I work on going and what was the specific thing I was doing? I was looking to not be tired by the end of a match. I was looking to make sure that I was keeping my blade in front of me. There's all kinds of things you can look at on a basic level, and you can improve them and look at whether you did improve. And then you have if you've successfully pulled them off, um, then you can focus on what's next. And if you haven't, then you can focus on what that is and still work on it. So you have something to work on. And as we said, old people problems, overhydrating. I didn't necessarily overhydrate. I just nerves kick in, and that's just what happens. So it depends on the scenario. Hearing about how you struggled with your early time in HEMA tournaments helps me mentally. I was never good at tournaments. 2019 was the first in 10 plus years I'm learning. So I love for it here in TSL. Well, I'm glad you can. Yeah, I mean, I there's a Facebook memory that popped up for me. It was a couple days ago. It was after TSL 4. I think it was after TSL 4. And I posted one of my earliest TSL fights, and it was like 2016. It was like May of 2016, so it was like a couple weeks before TSL 1. That was my first tournament. I was awful. I lost so badly. I had no concept of timing, footwork, of defense. There was so many things that I did not do right. And I will also say, Matthew, I'm still struggling with that. Uh, I'm still struggling with that HEMA tournament, thing. So like, I don't fight in the HEMA tournaments at Combat Con. I do fight in them at other places, and I still struggle with that. I'm still struggling to work to get my first, rapier pool scenario. The last Reaper tournament in, I got steamrolled. I mean, literally, it was the guy that got gold. I think I got one other guy because it was a point system to advance. Actually, all three people beat me so soundly that they all moved on. Um, Another guy got to the quarters, and or one got to the quarter. Two of them got to the quarters, I think, and the other one won gold. So like they were all people who regularly are in the hunt for a win. So I just got steamrolled, and I had that was what, 2020, so I had 4 years of experience. At least enough I felt that I could hold up. My previous year, I won a match. I lost a match in sudden death, and I held the person who came in third to literally one exchange. Like they got one thrust in, and that was the only thing they got in, and there was no other points scored in the match. Like that was a good run for me. But then the following year, I got destroyed, right? And mentally, that's very tough. But so I'm still working through that, and I will say the nice thing is that when I do well in TSL, I go into a HEMA tournament where I'm not putting all of my effort into, because I definitely put more effort into my TSL training, um, and I like the humility that I need to have to move on, and it's a great thing to be able to balance that. So um, and Christian said, my goal was to fight Alan, simple enough. And you got to apologize for being in the corner and saying certain things that, because from fighting you, that I knew would work. I don't know if Alan listened to me, because one thing I've learned about Alan is 9 times out of 10, he doesn't listen to anything I say, other than maybe breathe or slow down or kill the clock. Beyond that, I don't know if Alan ever actually listens to anything I say. I know Mark does. But usually my cornering advice from Mark is slightly, off the line, step off, you know, watch how they, like, I think the only thing I told Alan with you is that you're slippery. You're going to slip in and out of distance. And he knows the rest. It's not, does he need the extra advice? Probably not, but, I like to give it. I like to be able to analyze it. That helps me. It does help me to help corner for people, because it helps me look at a fight as it's happening from the perspective of as close to being the fighter as I can be. So I can look at, say, Alan fighting you, and I can look at how you react to certain situations, and that can help me with my training and how I'm preparing mentally. Not necessarily for my future matches that day, but just training in general. So it's just training my eyes, training reactions and training my analysis skills. That I have an ability to analyze certain matches and break them down really well, but that's only because I've done it a lot. It has nothing to do with, like, I have an innate skill that allows me to probably have some, but it's like, no, it's just I started doing that. I recorded my own fights. I started breaking them down. I started analyzing things. I started breaking down other people's fights, and then I took that into a tournament where I knew I was fighting that person and was able to manipulate those tendencies for a win. That took time. That took success. That took failure, took all those things. It just takes takes time to work it. So um, yeah. So overall, I'm happy that I was able to at least maintain my level of objective placement, and understand that now that I think a lot of there are definite techniques and things that I need to work on, but that a lot of my tournament focus, specifically tournament focus, is needs to focus on ring psychology, meaning my mindset, how I approach it, so I can get to the point where I'm comfortable just fighting my fight without actively thinking about it, without getting in my head, um, and also how I can control the fight. So when I am ahead in the fight, I have control. It seems like when I'm behind, I can get that control back, because that happened multiple times. It's happened in the past, and I'm able to do that. But uh, okay, Joe says I should read more Hutton, so I'm going to read 2 words out of Hutton. Double feints. There you go. Read more Hutton. I'm set, right? So that's what that. There you go, Joe. I read about double feints. Just the words double feints, but I think it's enough. So uh, just think, kill them and don't die. So I do find that more difficult in the TSL world, just because I always think of it as like I'm cutting off a limb, as opposed to in rapier, where I purposely want to hit them like here, or you can hit them in the neck because a spring steel, or in the face. I do think that in context of a historical, like I killed you, that's a kill. That's what I want to do. But because we don't have the deeper targets, a lot of times, a lot of my hits are going to be on the arm or the hand, rather than elsewhere. Mainly because I'm not worrying about, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about it in a historical context. I'm thinking about it in a probably more of a sport context than I am thinking about it in a dual context. So um, maybe that's something to think about. I've always thought about, like, you know, should I that I should be that me in general, not actually not me, but in general, should people be training more about what targets they're looking for in a fight, so they can control more where they're going to hit, rather than just trying to get the arm because that's the closest target. Um, I don't know if that would be like you need to train under like a weighted rule set where it's like certain points or more, because you want to say, okay, well, I want to focus on, not that I recommend it. I'm going to focus on, getting leg shots, but clean leg shots, right? Not these sloppy, quick suicide dive leg shots, but I want to get clean leg shots, right? So maybe I'll fight someone in a mock fight, with, judges and everything, where I'd say, okay, leg shots are 2 for me in this fight. I need to get that, but or like I want to win this fight, but the only way I can win this fight is I have to get 2 clean leg shots or something like that. So there's scenarios that you can create, training scenarios, to help yourself work towards that. So that's kind of just where I wanted to talk about that, how you can analyze and everything. So here we go. From the standpoint of volunteering, if I want a good view of the fight, sitting at the judges' table is a good option. I got a good view of the fights because they spent most of the Saturday at the table. That's a good one because it doesn't require you to. You're not actively watching it. So if line judging is something either A, you're not comfortable at, you don't feel good at it. I mean, I would encourage you to do it to get better at it. But table judging is a great way to watch a fight and then work your way forward. Work your way to analyzing things from that, because there's not as much you have to do running the clock. You're listening for a cue, you're looking for a cue, but you have to watch the fight because you have to see what's going on. Same thing with scorekeeping. So yeah, it's also not as intimidating as line judging. Good way to train the eyes. Yep, those are things to consider. And I will bring up my thing about volunteering then. So I won my first match, but Matthew killed me. We enjoyed that factor of the dinner so much more than a win or a loss, and that's what I want. That's why I'm okay losing certain matches, right? I take the quote, from Princess Bride, right? It's in different contexts, but when Fezzik says to Wesley, I just want you to feel that you're doing well. I hate people to die feeling bad. You know, that I would rather, I would rather lose a match and feel that I did than, than win a match and feel really bad about how I fought or how I behaved or whatever. And I would really hate to lose a match where I just fought awfully, and just I couldn't do anything, and I just felt like there was nothing I could do to get any type of back and forth to have a good fight, because that's part of the fun. Part of the fun is the back and forth banter, like getting steam. What I will say is steamrolling someone unless they really, really deserved it. I mean, like I'm talking like someone's like a super, super jerk, which nobody was at TSL5. Nobody was that level of jerk. I will say that to every single TSL competitor. Nobody hit the level of super jerk. There were a couple of those at TSL4. There were definitely a couple of those at TSL4, but and I'm not going to name any names, so don't ask. But no super jerks at TSL5. So good on everybody. Good on the community. But I don't like steamrolling people, and I don't want to be steamrolled. I would assume that somebody that is doing really well against me and is going to have a higher scoring match against me, that they will modify their techniques to make it a better match, so it doesn't feel like so that's just me. I mean, I know other people probably feel the same way, but it's just I like to feel good going out of a match, regardless of win or loss. So it's that's a good thing. So okay, so I'm gonna drink some water here, and then I will talk about volunteering. So I'm just gonna say, like, this is not to call anybody out or anything like that. I just know that there were some people that took issue with the mandatory volunteering, of which, keep in mind, was about maybe 2 hours worth of work. Um, so like 2 hours of volunteering, maybe less, because I think we required like two pools or something like that if you were line judging, which does not take 2 hours. So, um, we are a volunteer organization. Nobody takes a paycheck in the Saber Legion. Nobody. Um, I'm on the council and I do all the media stuff. Jason and I brought a lot of our own equipment to TSL. Cameras, computers, stands, mixers. Joe brought some stuff. Kevin McMahon from Minnesota brought some stuff. We don't get paid to bring our own equipment. If that equipment breaks, it's on us, right? It's not on TSL. There's no budget for that. So, like, we are volunteers. And right now, at the level where the sport is at now, we need volunteers to judge, to help run everything. People put in hours and hours and hours of work outside of the event, to have a good event. So asking a minimal amount of time to volunteer, is not that a bad thing. A bad thing. I'm just going to say it. Um, I I believe that if you appreciate the work that people are doing in a tournament, and I'll say this as someone who's in, one of the people in charge, but I'll say this also as someone who's been to tournaments as solely a fighter, right? Um, if you appreciate the work that they're doing to make a good event, volunteering a little bit in some way or helping out some way, is a wonderful way to show how much you appreciate them. I have been to many, many events where I, was a paying customer, because I've heard that argument from people in years past. That we're paying, Combat Con for this. Why should we're paying TSL for tournament? Why should we do this? And it's like, well, because we're not really making money hand over fist here, to pay people to line judge. And you think about a match, right? You have two table judges, a director, and four fighters, right? So you have you know, what, seven people, right? That's seven people, not counting the fighters that need to run that match. Also, is somebody filming it? That's another person, maybe two. Is someone commentating on it? That could be another person. It could be one of the media people. It could be that, right? That's eight. I mean, in reality, and then there's other people that are running things like processing pool results and entering stuff into the tournament software and stuff like that. There's probably 10 people that are there to produce a match that occurred at TSL5, right? That is something to keep in mind. So it takes 10 people. We can't pay all those people, right? We can't pay them a wage that I think would be fair to pay them, with the with the amount of where I think it would be fair for people, right? So we have to rely on that volunteerism, and some of that is that you know so we asked people a minimum amount of time, and I will say the overwhelming response has been people are okay with with requiring a minimum time to volunteer and help out with the tournament. But some people felt the need to felt that it shouldn't be mandatory or there should be options. And I feel that we very much accommodated people. Um, so sorry, I know you probably can't hear it, but my kids are just being, well, they're being kids. And it's okay. But I will say that, you know, the one thing to think about is like, yes, you may be doing other things. I acknowledge that TSL is not the only thing happening at CombatCon. There are classes, there are classical fencing tournaments, there are HEMA tournaments, there are there's just hanging out with your friends. There's obligations that you would have to friends to help them if they're fighting, right? Cornering people, stuff like that, right? You can you can do those things, right? And still help with the tournament. But you probably can't do everything that you wanted to do. I'm just going to give an example here. I went into TSL 3 as a fighter. I was not a national director at the time. I was not a media team member at the time. So I went in as a fighter, and a charter rep, right? So I fought in a single stick tournament. I fought in exotics. I fought in standard. I fought in rapier. So I fought in 4 tournaments. Um, that pushed me to my physical limit of what I was able to do. And I wasn't able to. Oh, you can hear them. Good. Okay. Well, whatever. They're just being 6 and 3. Um, so I just wanted to, I had to do that. And I'll keep in mind, this is when they were on opposite sides of the convention floor. So it wasn't like walking from the HEMA room to the tournament room is literally walking 15 feet. It was, no, you have to walk from one end of that floor all the way to the other side. So you were walking for, like, I don't know, 3 minute walk, maybe, if I was walking at a good clip, 3 4 minute walk. And if you have gear, that's even more so of a pain in the butt. That really took a toll on me, to the point where I realized I cannot do that again. I need to sacrifice something, right? In the end, I ended up doing a lot more volunteering with TSL, and I had to sacrifice some of my fighting in TSL and HEMA tournaments and some of the classes that I'd like to take, right? But you can't do all of those things, you know? Um, and sometimes that means you got to drop the tournament that is not the one that's most important to you, whether that's a TSL tournament, whether that's a HEMA tournament. Um, but sometimes you can't do everything. Oh, I can't corner for everybody, fight in 2 to 3 tournaments, or 2 HEMA tournaments, fight in 2 TSL tournaments, and then still have time to relax, right? Because I know some people look at it like it's a vacation. It's a vacation for all of us. So be clear that you need to schedule out your time. When you go to a convention, when I go to any convention, it doesn't matter whether it's just like a Comic Con or something like that. I schedule out my time, on a basic level, not on a micromanaged level, but like, I want to go to these things. These are the things I have to do. These are the things I'd like to do. And these are if I'm around, or circumstances line up, I'll go to that. I do those things, and I typically that keeps me grounded enough to know that, okay, I have to do 2 hours of TSL work. Okay, well, when can I do that? And I will say we very much accommodated people in the context of someone said, I can't make it for this. I have to do this. I can't make it for this. I have to do this. If someone said, can you switch my pool? There were multiple scenarios where I saw that happen. So anybody saying we didn't accommodate that stuff is either being they're not being fair. They're not looking at the situation very fairly, because I saw multiple situations where I wasn't involved with it, where we accommodated people to switch pools to help them. So, and I think it's a fairly good thing to help the tournament happen, because what I will say is, the HEMA tournament doesn't require it. But if I was fighting in a HEMA tournament, I would do line judging for them. You know why? Because there's judges that are volunteers that are volunteering for me to have a good fight. So I would expect the same from them. So that back and forth. It's just giving back to the community. Um, are there things that we can improve upon as far as like how that's set up? Yes. Um, you know, this is the first time we've had, a schedule available for fighters. Before it was check in with the room and see what happens. I think that's pretty good. And we ran late. I think like one day. Well, we definitely ran late, 1 or 2 days, but we had things built in to help line it up. So, it's just there's always things we can do better. But the big thing to understand is that while someone may come in treating this like I'm a paying customer and I deserve these things, the customer is always right doesn't always apply. And also the line, the customer is always right, is not accurate to what people analyze it as. The big thing is I look at it this way. If you have a problem, something didn't work, something, write it down, make it known, right? But also have solutions. Don't just say, this went wrong, I didn't like this. And if we say, well, we could do this, and you say, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. You're not assisting the situation to help improve your problem. And I'll say, apply that to your life, please. But just make sure that you're looking at it like, if you have a problem, look at it this way. If you say, look at something in the rule set, and I'm just going to apply it to a different thing. If you say there's a problem in the rule set, and you say, I don't like that people can step out on the final exchange. This is something that's going to be addressed, but I don't like that. People can step out on the final exchange, do a ring out, and they can win a match that way, right? Okay, great. Do you have a solution? Offer a solution. Even if you don't have the full solution, just say, I would like it if, they had to end it on an engagement. It had to be a point, or it had to be an exchange of, whether it's a simultaneous or a point for, point against, or something like that. Or even you engaged and then like suddenly you stepped out inadvertently while fighting, right? Right? That's a solution. That's not the final solution. We have to do testing. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about it in meetings and committees and stuff like that. But that's a solution, right? If you say, I don't like the mandatory volunteer, and you say, but I am saying, oh, you know what? I'm willing to pay $100 to make sure that you can bring more people in and give free passes to people that come in and volunteer their time, like Aaron Rackala did, where he directed for us all weekend and didn't fight in any tournaments. That's a solution. Is it a solution that we would necessarily go with? Maybe, maybe not. But it shows that you're seeking to find a solution instead of just complaining. And I think that's an important thing. I think it's an important mindset to have. And that's a mindset that I say with post-tournament analysis, right? You're not complaining that like, oh man, the judges sucked. The directors were awful. And that's why I lost my matches. That's not going to get you anywhere. There's no solution there, right? You can't fix that. You can't guarantee the quality of a director or a judge in the next tournament that you go to, right? Whether it's good or bad. So what can you do? Well, I can make my shots clear so the judges can see it, right? That's a solution. That's something you can work towards. So with the volunteer thing, just, just make sure that, sorry, got like throat's drying up a little bit. Um, look for the solution. It will, like I say, especially if you're asking an organization to make this, offer the solution, and that's how we grow the community. Because on top of that, if you can be the person providing that solution, either maybe that someone will say, "Hey, that was a great idea you had. Can you help out on the sports management team or help us out with this? We could use some help with that. Or do you mind hopping on a meeting with the sports management team and talking about it or something like that?" Again, I'm talking hypotheticals, but it's just these are ways that when you have an issue, you can solve it. And I think people looked at the volunteering, the mandatory volunteer hours, as a thing that was like, well, I don't want to do that, and I have all these other things I need to do, as opposed to saying, okay, these things are happening. How can I help make that work? Who can I talk to try to find the best solution? Because in reality, if someone wanted to get their volunteer hours out, there are times when there were no tournaments happening that people could have been there, right? On Sunday, there was volunteer time available. People could have gotten it out then. On Wednesday night or Thursday morning, people definitely could have come in and gotten volunteer time. And some people did. So just think of it that way. It's like there's ways to we can find a solution for issues like that, like scheduling issues. We're pretty good at it. We fixed a lot of things, right? And I think we did it pretty well. And if we didn't, please tell us. There's a TSL comment box or something like that, or there's the survey as well. So just wanted to. That's my rant. I will get off my soapbox, and say I am addressing a small minority of people, but I will. I'm just trying to say that like there is a balance to find there, and if someone feels like they did too much, they probably did. And if 2 hours or two pools of volunteering or 2 hours elsewhere, for other stuff is too much, then I think there needs to be more uh, analysis of your own scheduling, because you're stretching yourself too thin. I did it myself, and it was not a fun time because, like I said, in 2018, I fought in 4 tournaments, right? I fought in 4 tournaments and got to the exotics quarterfinals, won, and had to drop because my shoulder was literally like I was going to strain my shoulder very seriously. I was going to injure it further. It was already strained, but I needed to do that because I stretched myself way too thin physically. Right, I had too much happening. So just think about that. Consider that when you book your TSL6. We're doing 6 tournaments now. Granted, if you're not in the 50 plus or the women's tournament qualifications, you know, tag team standard exotics and, experimental or potentially a unity tournament, that might be too much for you just on the TSL side of things. You don't need to fight in all those tournaments, right? Do the one that's important to you or the 2 tournaments that are important to you, right? Same thing with the HEMA. I would love to fight in single stick. I would love to fight in a military saber. I would love to fight in a rapier dagger. Even for fun, I would like to fight in a sword and buckler, even though I've only done very, very minimal sword and buckler. I have my reasons for not fighting in a longsword tournament, that more have to do with just injury prevention. But regardless, I would enjoy it if it was, if people sometimes weren't crazy. But I'd love to fight in all those things, and I'd love to fight in every TSL tournament I can fight in. But I can't do all that direct. Run a media stream, run a media live stream, or run it with other people. I can't do all those things and attend if I want to attend a class or something like that, and then potentially have a social life within the event as well. So I need to pick and choose what are the most important things, but also what are the most helpful things as far as like helping to improve a community that I'm helping to grow. So again, I went on my soapbox a little bit more, but I'm off now. So Greg said, after reviewing the videos on say Charlie's director's way of announcing point score at each hold should be standard. I agree and disagree at the same time. Two reasons. One, if a director is directing all day, calling out every single time will lead to that director losing their voice by the end of it. If we have a good chunk of CITs and other consulars and stuff like that, it's not as big a deal. And that's certainly possible. Two, as long as we have the scoreboard visible to the fighters, I think it's on the fighter um, to know the score. It is. I think it's just something that you need to be on about. All right. So, you know, I will say as a fighter, you should be aware of the score. If there is not a visible scoreboard for you, yes, I fully agree with you, Greg. There should be an announcement by a director. But I would argue that rather than make that the standard, I would say we put that on a case by case basis. So if the scenario calls for it, the score should be called out. Um, but there's just there's too many times that it can be confusing. Now, I will say there are times in HEMA tournaments that they don't call out the score, and in a weighted system where 4 points is the head, 3 points is the torso, 2 points for the leg, and one for the arm, with after blows that take points away, and all this stuff. Not calling out the score can be detrimental to a fighter. I think I've lost one or two matches by a point or two in HEMA tournaments because the score didn't just happen to not be called out for that for that time frame. So I would agree that it is important for fighters to know the score, but I think as long as there is a visible scoreboard, it is on the fighter to look at that. Obviously, as long as it's being updated properly. But if there is not, yes, a director could call that out. I think it's a good guideline to follow off of. So thank you for the suggestion. And we can make sure that we tell our directors to do that when the situation calls for it. I say that happens a lot at CS tournaments, other smaller tournaments, where they forget to do that, or they don't have a scoreboard that's set up for that purpose. Yeah, I did 4 tournaments that weekend, and I paid for it. However, I sacrificed classes for table judging, but I took the 2 classes I wanted to take. See, that's the thing. Like you knew what you wanted to do. You did 4 tournaments. That is a tough thing to do. Um, you couldn't go to every class you want. I will argue also, if you go to every class you want, you will also be just as destroyed, because some of those classes can be very physical. 2017, I had unlimited pass. I fought only in 2 tournaments, and there was no TSL at the time, and I went to every single class I could go to, and I was physically destroyed by the end of the weekend. It just took everything out of me. So just keep that in mind that, there are only so many hours in the day, and I would love to do everything, but I can't. So, but you said you took the classes you wanted to take, which is the most important thing, which is why I said figure out a schedule and say, these are the things I definitely want to do. Like for me, if I'm looking at it, I don't think I can fight in 4 tournaments next year. I don't know. I'll see, because maybe. But so maybe I need to look at it and say, okay, well, standard is important to me, so I definitely want to fight in standard. Tag team, if I'm still the champion at that point, and Mark is doing it, I kind of have to, right? Unity, let's say if it's a unity tournament or not a different rule set, I need to fight in that. Okay, so those are those 3. So that's the 3 I'm going to fight in, right? So I need to drop exotics because 4 tournaments is going to be very tough on me, right? That's assuming I do no HEMA tournaments, and I might want to do one. So I need to find that balance, and then if that means that okay, I can't dedicate as much time to the media live stream, then that means that I need to have the goal of enough people who can run the live stream without me, right? That there can be enough people there. So finding that balance, you know. So okay, so Imagine having the time visible isn't likely to happen. So is it acceptable for fighters to ask the time maybe more than once? I think you can ask at any point. There's no reason that you can't have the time. There's no secret to it, because otherwise we just wouldn't call out the time and we'd let the time elapse, right? So there's a way to ask it. Um, so there is. I'll just I'll show it in the context here. Let's see here. I'll just show it from my phone. So if you guys aren't familiar with this, we have a scoreboard app. This app also allows a presenter mode that works in Chrome. So it allows you to, very easily start a clock and then, pause it and then add score and then start it. So we've used that at CS events in the past. You hook it up to a computer, you run Chrome through it, and you hook a projector or a screen or whatever, and it has a specific scoreboard kind of view. We have used that. That would be the way to do it in regards to you being able to see it visibly. So it isn't likely to happen without extra technology, because basically we would need to be running a computer and a projector or a screen. So if you think about three rings, say in standard, yes, at the national tournament, unlikely. Maybe it could be run for the finals or when we're running one ring, uh, it's fine. It's fine to ask. I don't think that's. If you ask me, I would just say, "Oh yes, what's the time?" And then table judge will tell me. So um, I don't see a problem with it. There's no issue. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. So, are there any questions for the good of the order before I wrap up? I know. So I will say here's kind of the media plan. I have a hard drive that is full of all of our footage from that weekend, and Jason Knight has a copy as well. So we're not. This is not the only copy, and I did copy this to another hard drive today, and I'm going to upload it, so we won't lose it. Hopefully, um, there is. Um, the plan for that is we have all of the recorded streams, meaning what we broadcast out was recorded locally, so it's not subject to the compression that happens when you stream something live. So I'm going to try to release that um, very, very soon and start just thinking, okay, like I'm going to stream it as a live stream, the recorded stream, and then it can be played back. So it'll be a clean copy that we have access to, that you can access. It'll be a little bit cleaner. Then the next step from there, because every angle that we had, even the cameras we weren't using, because some of them, the connections to this weren't working, we have recorded angles of most of the fights. I would argue, I would hope we have about 90% of the fights recorded. There's a couple, switching memory cards. And I think early on there was like a problem with the one rings camera that we had to fix. So we have most of the fights recorded. So that's another thing that I want to do is get every fight released. It won't necessarily have commentary because that would require a big extra step. And won't necessarily have scoreboards other than maybe some of the bigger fights. But we'll be able to record or be able to release those and have at least majority of individual matches. Um, so if you have alternate angles of matches, hit me up. I can give you a link, because like we do underground where we record a match and we have every angle. We have that happening. So I want to release all that stuff. Kind of like one match a day would be my hope. Like we can get a whole bunch of matches kind of ready to go, and then everybody can eventually look at their match and they can go into a playlist and just say like, "Oh, where's my match?" Right there. Um, so at the very least from one angle, even if the angle is not great, it was at least recorded. That was my 100% stream goals. I wanted to get majority of matches recorded without issue. Melody asked about Underground coming soon. We're going to have to talk about scheduling on that, but we did record. How many matches did we record? Did we record two or three? I think we recorded three. I'm pretty sure we did. We did, what did we do? Aaron and Jameis. We did the Fabulous Frogs versus the Marvelous Men. which but there were some great fights. There was another fight, and I cannot remember it, and I don't know why I can't remember it. Um, but I don't know, but someone will probably chime in and tell me. Um, when you say five, what do you mean five? Underground five, or what do we? We didn't record five fights. I'm pretty sure I didn't record five. I thought it was three, but I could be wrong, and that was a long day, and I don't remember a whole lot. So I will look at my footage and go from there. But I think we have other fights in the can, I guess. So so if you're saying five, that's how many we have total. That makes sense. But also, if you have underground fights, or you can encourage people that haven't fought, um, I think we had three. Maybe we had four. We might have had four, but uh, I mean, I could look, but then I'd just be looking at my phone on the stream, and then it's like obnoxious. So, um, but yeah, the we have some good fights from there. In our little corner, a little side ring that was kind of a fun thing. Um, so we have that to look forward to as well. And then obviously we're going to keep doing Corn TV content right now. Uh, Called Corn TV for now. We're looking at potentially a rename, or a rebrand there. Just as we are now open, with TSL5 and other events happening. There could be other things that other names that we could be considering for that. So just something to think about. But I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to log off. Hopefully, this is helpful. My hour and a half rant and talk about analysis and volunteering and all these things. Um, you know, please understand that they are my views, but they don't necessarily reflect the views of the Saber Legion as a whole. While I am an officer in the Saber Legion, just keep that in mind. Um, but hopefully the useful information. I think with this show, I'm going to continue with the bad habits. I will start looking at TSL5 footage, and as I start looking at that, I will probably start doing some fight breakdowns as well. I know people really like that part that I was doing that I haven't done for a long time. But that was because I was out of footage. Now I have footage. Now it's just about finding the best footage to illustrate a point and being able to talk to it. There might also be some additional training outside of that, meaning like if I start looking at like another treatise or something like that, like we did a little bit with, broadsword week and small sword week and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like we haven't done a rapier week, and there's books. I got books on the subject. Where's the other one? There we go. That's the other one. So there's other ones that we can grab here that we can look at, you know, um, that we can talk about and how to apply it to the LED saber. So maybe I'll talk with Mark and Alec about that, and we'll see if we can do some other stuff. I know Mark's gonna continue talking about Hutton nonstop, and yeah, stay tuned for that. Alec, hopefully, maybe we'll talk about something like Distressa or more about Distressa or something like that. But I'll talk to those guys and we'll see what we have coming up. So either way, take care. United through Sabres. Stay safe out there. So, and I will see you next week, hopefully at the scheduled time for my show on Thursday. Thank you.